Condo prices increased in January of 2025 in the Kelowna area, but does this signal a market rebound or just a temporary uptick? If you're thinking about making a move in Kelowna's condo market, this is the data you need to know. So let's hop into the stats right now, starting with the condo stats for January 2025. Starting with the sales. So the number of sales that we had is 63 sales, which is up about 10.5% since this time last year. That's what these green numbers represent, comparing to January of 2024. Now, the sales sitting at 63, we're sort of back to what I would consider a normal market. It'd be nicer to see it a little bit higher in the low 70s. But we are creeping back into what I would consider, again, the normal market. Now, inventory, we're sitting at 627 condo listings on the market right now. It has come down a little bit, but it is January. As we get further into spring, we'll see more listings come up. But that is still a 26% increase over 2024. The benchmark price, this was a little surprising, and I'll show you the pricing section in a minute here. So we're sitting at 517,000. That is a 4% increase over 2024, but it's an 8% increase over December. But again, I'll get into that in a second here. Now, the days to sell, this is something I dig into a little deeper than what the stats just show from our board. And if you've been following me for a little while, you understand why, and I'll explain it here. The advertised days to sell, so that's what the numbers are brought forward from our board and what has sold in January. So average days to sell, or the advertised average days to sell, is 77 days on market. So you're sitting at just over 2 months on market at the last list price. Now, what I do is I dig into, and I went through every single listing, all the sales, not the listings, all the sales, the 63 sales that we had in January, and the real days to sell is actually closer to 3 months. Now, what I mean by real days is listings. Let's say a listing gets put on the market for a certain number and it sits on the market for 60 days. Well, and it doesn't end up selling at that price. And then they lower the price and it ends up selling 30 days later. Well, technically, that condo sat on the market for 90 days. Now, what our board would do is go over the last time it was listed. So technically, that listing would get recorded as 30 days on market. So again, what I do is I go through all the sales just to see which ones were relisted. Now, the reason that I do this and dig a little bit deeper is it's an important number if you are a seller right now to expect that your condo might sit on the market for closer to 90 days or 3 months rather than 2 months. So hopefully this helps you manage your expectations on how long it might take to sell your condo. And it all depends on the price that you're at, the price point you're at too. If you're above 500,000, it takes a little bit longer to sell right now. And I will get into that in the next slide here in a moment. Now, the list to sale ratio has been sitting around 97% for the last, over a year right now. So that means that buyers and sellers are negotiating around 3% off the list price. Now, the condo market here in the Kelowna area, we are sitting in a buyer's market. Actually, the whole market itself is sitting in a buyer's market, but we're a little bit deeper into a buyer's market with 10 months of inventory, meaning if no other listings got listed, in theory, it would take about 10 months to sell off that inventory. And the absorption rate for January was 10%, or 1 in 10 condos sold in January. Now, if you have any questions about the Kelowna market, or you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in this area, I'd be happy to help you. You can simply shoot me a text message to the number on the screen. Now, let's get into the pricing. And before we do, if you're getting any value out of this video, I invite you to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on my future videos. Now let's discuss the pricing as at the end of January 2025. Let's start with the peak of the market. So March 2022, if you weren't aware, that was the peak of the market during the whole pandemic craziness that we had. So 556,000 was the peak of the market for the condo market. Now we're only about 7% down as at the end of January from the peak. So end of January, we're at $517,000, and that is an over 8% increase over December. And I'll get into that in a second, just why that might be. And as you can see, there's just a roller coaster of prices since the end of March 2022. Once the interest rates started going up, the prices started coming down pretty drastically. And as you can see from this blue line here, prices increased from January 2020 to March 2022, only a couple years, 46% in that time frame. And if you happen to buy 5 years ago, so January 2020 to now, you're up about 36% in value. And if we just look at where we're sitting historically, if we take this red line back, we are sitting at about between January and February of 2022. So we're pretty close to the peak. But I do suspect that this price to come down in February. We'll see if I'm right, but just based off the sales that I saw, I think in February, the price is just going to come back down to around 500,000, maybe a little bit under 500,000 again. I think we're going to be maybe above December's numbers, but definitely below January. That's my prediction. Now, just for a little context on the sales, 68% of the sales were $500,000 or less. So if you have a condo that's in that range, expect it to sell a little bit quicker than if it's above 500,000. Now, what was interesting about the sales were 3 of them were above $1 million, and one of those was actually a $2.5 million condo. So I think that skewed the numbers a little bit because there was only 63 sales. Those 3 sales, I really think it skewed the benchmark price here a little bit. And that's why I suspect it to come back down in February. So those were the stats for January. And next I have what I like to pull up here for every condo update is what I consider my deal of the month. This isn't my listing, just to put it out there. Not my listing, but it's just a condo that I think is really good value. Now it's at the under $500,000 price point, so it's great for first-time buyers, especially if you want to save on the property transfer tax. It's 2-bed, 2-bath, over 1,000 square feet, centrally located. This one you get 2 underground parking spots, which is pretty rare. Central heating and cooling in a condo, which is also pretty rare. And no property transfer tax, again, for first-time home buyers. It's about an $8,000 savings if you do qualify, of course. And for a 5% down payment, you're just under $25,000. So just to give you an idea of what you would need if you are in the market for a condo right now. And if you happen to be a first-time home buyer here in the Kelowna area and you're wondering, what are the mistakes I need to avoid? Well, I made a video here, 5 mistakes you need to avoid as a first-time home buyer.